Pope Francis kicked off 2025 with a bang. Well, not literally. His words, however, resonated like a thunderclap across the globe. It was more of a thought-provoking message about assisted dying, a topic that has been stirring debates for years. In his New Year's Day address, the Pope urged the world to see natural death as a natural part of life. He emphasized the sanctity of life and the importance of letting it run its natural course. He argued against practices that intentionally end a person's life, calling them a violation of the natural order and divine will. Now, this wasn't just some random philosophical musing, it was a carefully crafted message aimed at a world grappling with ethical dilemmas. The Pope's message came at a time when the UK Parliament was debating a controversial bill. This bill had the potential to change the landscape of end-of-life care in the country. This bill, if passed, would legalize assisted dying for terminally ill adults in the UK. It was a proposal that had divided opinions and sparked intense debates. The timing? Let's just say it was about as subtle as a brick through a stained glass window. The Pope's words landed right in the middle of this heated discussion. The Pope's message reignited a global debate about end-of-life choices. It brought to the forefront the complex interplay between ethics, religion, and personal freedom. It also highlighted the delicate balance between individual autonomy and deeply held religious beliefs. The Pope's stance was clear, but the world's response was anything but unanimous. And of course, it wouldn't be a proper papal pronouncement without a hefty dose of controversy. The Pope's message was a call to reflect, to debate, and to consider the profound implications of our choices at the end of life. Let's be clear, the Catholic Church and assisted dying, not exactly best friends forever. The Church has consistently condemned any practice that intentionally ends a human life. They see it as a direct violation of the sanctity of life, a principle deeply ingrained in Catholic teachings. The Church believes that life is a gift from God, and only God has the right to take it away. They argue that every life, no matter how difficult, holds inherent value. So whether it's abortion or assisted dying, the Church stands firm in its opposition. But Pope Francis's stance, while firmly rooted in Catholic doctrine, carries a particular weight. He's known for his compassion and his willingness to engage with complex issues. This makes his message even more potent, even for those who don't share his beliefs. While the Pope was busy preaching compassion, the UK Parliament was grappling with a real-life ethical dilemma, the Terminally Ill Adults End-of-Life Bill. This bill was all about giving terminally ill adults the right to choose when and how they die. The proposed law was pretty specific. It would only apply to adults with less than 6 months to live. And even then, there were safeguards built in. 2 doctors would have to confirm the diagnosis and the patient's mental capacity. Plus, there'd be a waiting period to make sure the decision wasn't made on a whim. The bill ignited a firestorm of debate. Some people saw it as a compassionate step towards giving dying people control over their final days. Others saw it as a slippery slope, fearing it could lead to pressure on vulnerable individuals to end their lives. Now, this bill wasn't about pulling the plug on just anyone who'd had a bad day. The terminally ill adults, end of life. Bill was very specific about who could access assisted dying. First, you had to be an adult. No minors allowed. Second, you had to be terminally ill with a prognosis of 6 months or less to live. And it wasn't enough to just tell your doctor you were ready to cash in your chips. 2 independent physicians had to confirm your diagnosis and your prognosis. But it wasn't just about physical health. The bill also required a mental capacity assessment. This was to make sure that people were of sound mind when making this life or death decision. And to prevent any rash decisions, there was a mandatory waiting period between the request and the actual assisted dying. Section 5. The sanctity of life from conception to natural death. This principle is a cornerstone of the Catholic faith, emphasizing the inviolable dignity of every human being. Pope Francis didn't just slam the door shut on assisted dying. He took this moment to highlight a broader, more profound message. He used the opportunity to reiterate the Catholic Church's broader message about the sanctity of life. This message is not just a doctrine, but a call to action for all believers. And when they say life, they mean life from the moment of conception to the very last breath. This belief encompasses every stage of human existence, from the earliest moments in the womb to the final moments of life. This means the Church is also staunchly against abortion. They see it as a grave moral wrong, a violation of the sanctity of life. They believe that life begins at conception and therefore abortion is the taking of a human life. This belief is rooted in the idea that every life is precious and deserves protection. This stance has often put the church at odds with pro-choice advocates who believe women should have the right to control their own bodies. The debate is complex and deeply emotional, touching on issues of autonomy, ethics, and human rights. But the Pope's message goes beyond specific issues like abortion and assisted dying. It's a holistic view of life that calls for respect and care for all individuals. It's about recognizing the inherent dignity of every human life, regardless of age, health, or social status. This perspective challenges society to value and protect the most vulnerable among us. It's a call for a more compassionate and life-affirming society, a society where every person is seen, valued, and supported, from the youngest to the oldest, from the healthiest to the most infirm. This vision of life is one of unity, love, and respect for all. Section 6. A global perspective on end-of-life choices. The UK isn't the only country wrestling with the ethics of assisted dying. It's a global conversation with different countries taking wildly different approaches. In some parts of the world, like the Netherlands, Belgium, and Canada, assisted dying has been legal for years, with strict regulations in place. In the US, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Assisted dying is legal in a handful of states, but it remains a hotly debated issue with strong opinions on both sides. Some countries, however, remain firmly opposed to any form of assisted dying, often citing religious or moral grounds. This patchwork of laws and attitudes reflects the complex and evolving nature of the debate. It highlights the challenge of finding a global consensus on such a deeply personal issue. Section 7. The voices of support and dissent. A spectrum of beliefs. The debate over assisted dying isn't just a two-sided coin, it's a complex issue with many layers and perspectives. It's more like a multifaceted disco ball, with opinions reflecting a whole spectrum of beliefs. Each facet represents a different viewpoint, a different experience, and a different set of values. On one side, you have those who argue passionately for the right to die with dignity. They see it as a fundamental human right. They believe that people facing a painful and inevitable death should have the autonomy to choose how and when they die. For them, it's about control over their own bodies and their own destinies. They argue that forcing someone to endure unbearable suffering in their final days is cruel and unnecessary. They see it as an act of compassion to allow someone to end their suffering on their own terms. On the other side are those who believe that life is precious and should be protected at all costs. They hold that every moment of life has value, regardless of the circumstances. They argue that assisted dying devalues human life and could lead to vulnerable people feeling pressured to end their lives. They worry about the potential for abuse and the slippery slope it could create. They often cite religious beliefs or moral convictions as the foundation for their opposition. For them, the sanctity of life is paramount, and they believe that taking a life, even one's own, is morally wrong. This spectrum of beliefs highlights the complexity of the issue. It's not just about laws and policies, but about deeply held values and personal experiences. Each voice in this debate brings a unique perspective, making it a rich and multifaceted conversation. Section 8. Navigating the uncharted waters of assisted dying. As more countries grapple with the issue of assisted dying, the world is watching closely. The UK's debate, fueled by the Pope's intervention, has only intensified the global conversation. The challenge lies in finding a way to balance individual autonomy with the protection of vulnerable individuals. How do we ensure that assisted dying is truly a choice, free from coercion or pressure? How do we define terminal and who gets to decide? These are not easy questions, and there are no easy answers. But as medical technology advances and life expectancy increases, these questions are only going to become more pressing. Section 9. Pope Francis's enduring message, a call for compassion and dialogue. Regardless of where you stand on the issue of assisted dying, Pope Francis's New Year's message serves as a powerful reminder. It reminds us of the importance of compassion, empathy, and respectful dialogue in the face of complex ethical dilemmas. The debate over assisted dying is not about right versus wrong. It's about navigating the complexities of human suffering, individual autonomy, and the very definition of a life well lived. It's about finding a way to support those facing the end of life with dignity and respect, regardless of their choices. The Pope's message, while firmly rooted in Catholic doctrine, also carries a universal message of love and compassion. It's a call to approach these difficult conversations with open hearts and minds, seeking understanding rather than